I'm going to share my screen. So I just want to make sure everybody's able to see my deck as I walk through. Let's see. All right. Do we have my screen? Are we good? I think we are. I'll make sure here. Yes, perfect. All right, cool. I'm running through today a couple of topics that I've bundled into one talk. So kind of bear with me on that, but I'm really excited to bring these two things together, both in a professional development sense, but as well personal development. And as I was kind of sitting with this today, I just really see that they can be one and the same and that they can really impact the other. And so I found through my competing in bodybuilding competitions and sort of my external life really impacted my confidence and how I became a leader in the corporate space in my own pocket. And what does that mean? You know, while I'm not in a leadership role, I'm not a manager, I'm an individual contributor on a team. How can I best show up as a leader, and what does that look like for both myself in my personal life and as well in corporate too? So we're going to talk about up front here a lot around leadership and kind of apply a model to different facets of being a leader. And then in the back half, we're going to get into a topic that I am most passionate about, which is truly, you know, personal development and self-care. And again, I see how they really apply to one another. And so to get us started here, we're going to pause for just a second. I really, really love when the chat is active as I'm going through, because I might pull out little nuggets that I'm seeing. But I want you all to just pause for a moment. And if you want to close your eyes, these googly eyes are still going to be on the screen. You will not miss anything when you open them back up. But I just want you to take a second and picture yourself when you are being a leader, right? So when you are being a leader, whether it's in your day job, whether it's at home, whether it's in volunteer activities that you do, visualize yourself in that moment when you're leading, and what does that look like? So close your eyes. You shouldn't be looking at me or the screen, right? What is it that you're seeing in your mind's eye that you are doing? And so think about that for a moment. And then I would love for you to also type in the chat, right? Like, what am I doing? And when I'm thinking about me as a leader, what I love to do is be on stages and talk to people. A lot of times recently it's been virtual, but I see myself, right, on stage in front of a big group of people, and that's me being a leader. And that's one example of that. So I would love for you to just think on what that looks like for you, and then wake up, come back to the present with us, and just type in the chat, like, what is it that you're doing, right? Your hand motions, where are you? What's the setting? Like, think about that and maybe throw some things in chat, just because I'm super curious to hear what you guys have to say. So just give you a moment for that. It's a nice way to have a few less distractions for a second. Cool. So hope to see some things kind of keep popping up in the chat here. What do you see? You know, what are you envisioning? And then I would also love for you to actually go into, go inward a little bit and think of, like, who are people that you really look up to and see as awesome leaders? So whether it's an athlete or a coach or somebody that's a world leader or an author of a book, like, who is that leader for you that you really, really look up to and follow, right? Or love their content, that sort of thing. So type in chat some of those examples. One for me personally is Brene Brown. I'm a huge fan of her. So just want to kind of hear some of these from you guys and what those are. I'm going to actually pop over into the chat. Ooh, Ryan Holiday. Big fan of Ryan Holiday. Stillness is the key in 2020 was huge for me. Offering encouragement. Love these. So keep all of these coming. Our current association president. Yeah, this can be somebody that's your neighbor, right? This doesn't have to be somebody that is famous that we all know. It's like, hey, what's that leader that we look up to and that we aspire to be like? So absolutely love that. So I just wanted to get us kind of thinking of, right, when we think of those leaders or us in these different positions, right, of leadership, when we are acting as leaders, that can look like a lot of different things. And so I take this from a leadership class that I took last year, from the coactive Training Institute, they had a leadership class that I took, and I loved this model because I think there are so many different examples of leadership and different facets of it that we embody without really realizing it. And so if we can put sort of some context and some framework to those different areas where we can show up and be leaders, it's not always that leader in the front. There are other examples here. I'm going to walk you through what those can look like, because when we're acting in these pockets and we know we're there and we understand what those are, they help us kind of position ourselves to do this in a way that helps us really, really be effective for the people that we are coaching, mentoring, leading, that sort of thing. And also, if we're in a reactionary state and, not really familiar with this, sometimes there's opportunity left on the table, right, where we could have maybe been a better coach or a servant leader, that sort of thing. So we're going to walk through the different facets of this model. And my personal favorite one we'll end with is the leader within. And so we'll talk about, as we continue to develop our own unique leadership style, or try to grow and expand into maybe some of these other areas that aren't as familiar to us, what can that look like, and how does that empower us as leaders in our development moving forward? So leader in the front is exactly what it sounds like, and probably one of the ones that was visualized most in our exercise, right? So this is the person that's waving the flag and has the vision and leading the charge towards that common goal. As I think of, myself on a stage, the last time I was on a stage, I was speaking at a Women in Technology conference in Scotland, and I would love to be in person, but these types of events are so much fun for me as well. I love the engagement and connection that can be driven in this virtual setting. But this is, right, me on my stage in my example, getting people really excited about, hopefully excited about what I'm talking about and what I'm sharing with them, and kind of fostering that connection, right? I'm motivating people, maybe lighting a fire under their butts to like go take action in their lives and do big things and be brave, right? Whatever that is, this person is that visionary, but this person isn't just saying, follow me, this is the way, Baby Yoda style, and there's, no other way but this one. This person also has an accountability to say, okay, are any of my little sheep falling behind? Are people not bought into the vision, right? You're doing a lot of not just leading that charge and marching everybody forward, but making sure there is that alignment, that understanding, and that connection between the group to track towards whatever that end goal or outcome is. This one I think we're probably most familiar with, and some of the other ones might be a little bit newer. So as we get into leader beside, what I really love about this one is this is a consciously designed partnership. So where I have a particular set of strengths and, a colleague of mine may have differing ones, we intentionally partner together to make, a cohesive one strategy or, leadership effort here, or working on a project, whatever that might be, because we see the value in partnering together to drive that outcome. And it's the only way is if we partner together based upon our own strengths that we have. This kind of reminds me back to all those group projects that I had to do in high school and grad school, where I was just Miss Leader and like nobody showed up to do anything. And I thought it would be better if I did it by myself, right? That's oftentimes for me, Miss Type A, like what happens in this scenario. But this is so different than that, right? This is really seeing your partner or team for who they are and helping to really enable them to shine their brightest light while we also shine our brightest light, with the understanding that there's probably going to be some awesomeness that comes out of that. I know that's not a real word, but I didn't show up promising to use real words today. So what I love about this one, again, is you are really acting in that leader beside. And so sometimes, like with me and being Miss Type A, it's hard to not like step out in front and kind of just take it. And then sometimes, right, in a different personality type, it's hard to not just like step into the background and just let somebody take it, right? This is very consciously designed to uplift each other and work together towards that goal. And so that's something that I think is really important to continue to center yourselves around when you're in this setting. And one thing too, I should say, is with this model, you don't just sit in one pocket and stay there. Oftentimes throughout our days and our lives, in our work and wherever we're at, we're kind of transitioning between some of these things, right? These different facets of leadership. So the next is leader behind. So I saw somebody in the chat talk about kind of coaching and mentoring, or working alongside of students as an example. I think in a lot of roles as professors, as teachers, as educators, as people that, in my opinion, have had the hardest job in the last few years, and I hold so much space for everything that has been required of you guys, and I see that, and I understand how amazing it is to have people like you to impact our lives. I just really, really sit with that prior to coming here today. But I think of leader behind as, that servant leader, right? The one that is really helping people to shine their brightest light, to feel empowered, to make decisions for themselves, and kind of helping them be the ones to turn on that light bulb, right? We're not turning that light bulb on for them and giving them the answers. We're not saying you need to go do this, but we're maybe advising them or helping them, right, get that context and that understanding for themselves, to kind of connect the dots, right? We see sort of the landscape. We have a lot of experience that we bring to the table. And in this leadership role, we're really helping to kind of to foster and build them up versus directing them in where they need to go. This one, can also be challenging if we're kind of in that reactionary state, to say, they're just not getting it. Like, they're just not progressing as fast or as much as they could. And we see so much potential in them. And it would be easier to just say, do this next. But we really have to sit in this and kind of rumble with it sometimes to help best empower them and guide them and be an advisor to them without really telling them, like, you need to go do this, right? So it's a super empowering role. And I think that some of the most impactful people and mentors in my life that I have personally been fortunate and blessed to have as a part of it have been those guiding lights and that leader from behind. One of them is my mom, right? She hasn't told me exactly what to do, but she'll sit there and support me through it, even today. So I think of, these certain people in my life that have been that pivotal role of that leader behind, and how can I take what I've learned from that experience and kind of emulate that without, going around and turning on light bulbs for them. How do we get them to a place where they can do that for themselves? The last one for me is a little bit squishy, marketing technical term of, it's not super concrete and super tangible. This is the leader in the field. And so I view this personally, and I probably butcher the exact definition that is in the Coactive Leadership training book. I view this as that gut instinct or that gut read that you have, that you bring into the table based on, the industry that you really know well, or the subject matter that you really know well. So I guess for background on me, I'm a product specialist for Adobe's B2B marketing automation platform, Marketo, and as well the Magento or Adobe Commerce platforms. And so I know the products in and out. And when I speak to clients in different industries and hear their challenges and needs, right, I have a pretty good understanding based on my experience of what I think they should do. But because I'm also in this strategy role, I'm also listening to who do we have on the phone and what are they saying, and what do I think dynamically is happening in their teams as far as moving like a sale forward, right? Do I think they're really going to make a decision? Are there internal politics? Like, there's kind of gut feels that are squishy that I kind of get based on my experience that I can offer our account teams on how to sort of navigate this this account and the deal cycle maybe we're running. And so I provide that example to say, we get creative. We're really in tune with all of our experience. We're kind of open to, we don't have all the variables in play, but how do we think this is going? And we kind of guide and give direction based on how we're feeling. And so if I apply this into sort of the education sphere, one example that I might think of is, maybe we've got different teams of students working to I don't know, have a specific project or an outcome that they're driving for a semester, for a class. And we're kind of like guiding them and giving them direction on, how to better improve the project but we're also taking into consideration maybe outward kind of factors of how do they engage with each other, how are they working together, and just kind of like sitting on the outside and offering a wise sage perspective that perhaps they maybe weren't considering, as an example. So again, this one is a little bit woo-woo, if you will, or more like imaginative. You're really getting in touch with your intuition. But I think that in order to really have this kind of aspect of leadership, you have to be willing to kind of like rumble with the fact that there's some vulnerability at play. There's some trust that has to be built in your team. But this is an interesting one for me that they've included here. And I think it completes the model really well. But it is one for me personally that is definitely a growth area. So I just wanted to, walk us through what these look like and then land on my personal favorite one, and what will really tee up the remainder of our time here today is this idea of the leader within. So it's at the center of this model. Again, here's a picture of the model. It is at the center, this purposeful led leader, right, that can step out in these other fashions, but is always grounded on and centered upon that leader within. So what does that look like, right? Again, the most foundational piece. This requires you to really align to what are my personal values and goals. If I'm living in my truest purpose and bringing my purpose and my energy and the things that light me up out into this world and impacting students or other people in my life, what does that look like? Well, I have to be pretty grounded on who I am and accept the fact that, there are things in my life that have impacted my story and who I am and my experience, and center myself around that. And so I love this one because I think there's such an opportunity to expand this one, and it extrapolates to how you show up for the other ones. I think it's an acceptance of, hey, I'm not perfect. I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, but I'm willing to show up completely vulnerable and completely myself every single time, and understand that that's enough. And that's a way in which I can foster connection. And that's a way in which I can build people up and inspire them, or hopefully motivate them, even though motivation is fleeting. I think that this one for me is so, so key. And so I'm going to talk about some ways in which we can consider amplifying this and developing this for the remainder of our time. Brene Brown quote plug every single time. We'll always have this. If you ever see me present another slide deck again, it will be included. But again, authenticity is a daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. And choosing authenticity means cultivating the courage to be imperfect. And so as a leader, you're not going to be perfect. As a whole person, you're not going to be perfect. And can we embrace that and see that as a strength? So again, sharing this model, giving you the very Cliff Notes version of what these include. So as we are acting as that leader beside or the leader behind, we can recognize that's where we're at and really double down on how do we best service those that we are leading, whether we're leading in front, beside, behind, that sort of thing. So from a development standpoint, I think it's really important to understand your values and your goals and what you center yourself on. Mine is the picture on the right-hand side of the slide here. It is on the desktop of my computer. It is how I show up every single day at work. And when my feet hit the floor, I choose to wake up and be brave. I think I'm good at that some days. I think other days there's room for improvement. But for me, it's integrity first, always. Choosing courage over what's comfortable, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and choosing to practice and live into my values instead of just saying that it is one. So as we think of developing that leader within, or those other facets of leadership that we have out there, it is really showing up for those people asking for help, rumbling with the fact that we sometimes have to make hard decisions, that there's going to be risk maybe involved. It's understanding how do we, give and ask for feedback? How do we build trust within our teams? Emotional literacy is a huge one for me, right? Do I understand the difference between sympathy and empathy? And can I practice those things with those that I'm leading? So a lot of these things, just from a development standpoint, I think are really helpful. I also included a reading list that are like my favorite books that have really been perspective shapers for me, that I think will touch on a lot of these. Also, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown is great. So those are all in there. They cover different areas that I care about that we're going to move into here. So we're going to kind of run through some of these, and then I've got a time for questions and answers, and happy to answer anything that might be helpful for you. But I really want to transition from, we think of professional development and developing ourselves through that. And we oftentimes, with how busy we are and everything we have in flight, are human doings, but we're actually human beings. And so when we talk about stress and self-worth and achievement and developing ourselves, how do we kind of balance it all? That's a hard word, right? So my wake-up call happened in 2018. I got laid off from my job. I went through a really traumatic kind of relationship experience and a lot of things. And I just was go, achieve as much as I can so that I can numb out the rest. And then I woke up one day and I was like, oh man, you can't outdo or out-achieve trauma, and I'm going to have to work through this, right? And all of my self-worth at a really low point in my life was tied to my achievements. And I was like, man, who am I? Like, I think I'm a rock star, but this is getting confusing. So I kind of had that wake-up call, and it launched me into realizing that when I'm in a time of stress, I overfunction. And the more I can put on my plate, the less I have to feel. You could also underfunction and completely numb it away. But the reality is that there always are going to be external stressors and internal stressors. And just because the stress ends, just because the busy quarter or the semester finally ends, doesn't mean that we've metabolized and worked through the stress to get that out of our physical body. We're still carrying it around. And so we have to be able to metabolize that stress and work through it. And so whether it's we scream or we go for a run, we have to complete that stress cycle. And so I just kind of give some of these examples of the things that we carry around with us. And just because we think we checked off all the to-do list items and it's been hanging over our head for 2 weeks, doesn't mean that it's all gone. So I want to just offer that perspective really quickly, because when we get swirly in our thoughts and feelings and we're stuck there, eventually something's got to break to keep this in balance. And so it's when we go for a run or when we go to a rage room and we break all of the things, right? That helps us complete that stress cycle. And that's really what I'm talking about here. And so it's really awesome to have an awareness to this, because when you have really stressful times, it's okay, how can I complete the cycle of, I just had a really hard conversation with somebody that I love, and it's carrying over into my workday, and I can't focus, and I didn't sleep, and I don't feel very good. How can I, help myself or nurture myself through sort of metabolizing and releasing that stress? And I think in a virtual world where a lot of us are teaching, and if you've been a teacher through the pandemic, like, bless your soul, these are some of the things I think from a tool standpoint that can really help. This was a text I sent my boyfriend to complete the stress cycle after a really crazy commute. One morning when I was driving his Jeep, right? I got cut off. It was terrible. We almost were in an accident. I was like, I wish your Jeep had ramming bars. And shooting off that text message helped me to complete the stress cycle. So just an example for you guys. And also too, you have permission to take care of yourself, and wellness and feeling good and working on yourself doesn't have to be another damn goal, right? Like the green smoothie or the whatever doesn't have to be another goal that we're working towards to achieve. Wellness can be because I deserve to feel good and to take care of myself, to show up best for myself so that I can show up best for others. So I like to write permission slips because it's oftentimes really easy to tell our friends to go do and be, and they should take advantage of everything. And then when it comes to us, we don't always choose to take care of ourselves or write that advice that's so easy to give. It's sometimes hard for us to take ourselves. So I just like to put that out there. And self-care doesn't just look like doing a face mask and sitting in a bubble bath, right? It can look like so many things. And I encourage you guys, as you are working on all of the things and keeping all of the balls in the air and trying to develop yourselves professionally while sitting in the career where you're at right now and managing a family and all of the things, make a list, a nurture list of like the 10 things that really help you fill your cup back up. And if you haven't chosen to do one of those and it's Sunday and you've gotten through a week without it, check yourself, right? And allow yourself to do that. And self-care looks like a lot of things. It's not just the super fun treat yourself stuff, right? It's time away. It's actually adulting. I'm the first one to avoid errands and things that I have to get done because I just don't want to. And that is actually a form, in my opinion, of self-care. Allowing yourself to feel your feelings, making tough decisions, setting boundaries, practicing setting boundaries is kind of where I sit. This gratitude rampage is literally set your phone for 5 minutes and get out a piece of paper and write all the things you're grateful for. It's very cathartic. Highly recommend. So self-care looks like so many things. This is a way to develop and grow yourself personally, and I believe that pays dividends professionally as well. That was super fast. If you guys have any questions, I am super happy to take them at this time. If you'd love to connect with me, get more information, hey, what you said made no sense, let's talk about it, or have a conversation, or I would challenge Katie, something that you said. I'm open to feedback, and I love to get your thoughts, and if anything was helpful. LinkedIn, Instagram, Gmail, and then this I put up here to hold myself accountable. I started a podcast this summer. There are 4 episodes. It's Keep It Mellow on Spotify, and I need to do it again. And I know if maybe you guys will check it out, you're probably looking for additional content, and I need to get it out there. So just wanted to share that. Would love to connect and answer any questions you guys have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. That's great. The podcast, I can relate to that. I have a YouTube channel, and it's like, if I don't tell anybody about it, if I'm not accountable to it at all, it's easy to just forget about it. But having that makes a difference.
Mine froze because of imposter syndrome. So this is me taking that back a little bit.
Awesome. So we did have a few questions come in. And before we get into those, I just want to mention again, we did have a handout from Katie that's in that handouts on the right-hand side. You can go and download that. It's a perspective shapers that she talked about. So make sure you get that. And then one question we had come through, what do you recommend on trying to balance wanting to grow your skills, but managing stress of work-life, of that work-life balance?
Yeah. So in my personal experience, when I think about growing my skills, I'm like, what certification can I sign up for? And Adobe has professional development funds, and let me sign up for all these classes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what does this actually, like, what is the actual outcome this would give me? And am I just searching for a certification because that makes me think I'm qualified? So I would really do this like vetting out process of these additional skills that you want to develop, and do I already have them and I'm just not stepping into the fact that I'm owning them? Is there a specific certification or coursework or something that can really bolster what I want to learn because I'm super curious, right? So do some fleshing out, in my opinion, of what are the things you want to grow into and learn, and what does that equal? And is there a story right now that you can tell of how you already have those and where do you want to get to, and kind of map that out? I would sit there because I'm the first one to sign up for all this stuff and then show up for none of this stuff because it's way too much. And then from like that balancing yourself kind of thing, this looks so different for so many people. It's hard to have a cut and dry answer, but I would look at your week and alarm and whatever and be like, okay, where do I have an hour at the start of the week or an hour at the end of the week? And just check in with yourself to say, where am I just hanging by a thread? And identify what that is and how can I improve upon that for tomorrow or for next week, and just allow myself to take care of myself. And where you're at with like stress and dealing with different things, self-care might be like, I'm just going to sit in silence with no notifications for 15 minutes and breathe. And that might give you just as much as like, you know, me going to the gym and lifting really heavy weights. Like that looks different for everybody. And that's why I encourage the nurture list of like, what are the things that would feel so good if I just said no to something else and gave myself permission to spend some time with that? And my list, I wish I brought like a slide of it, because the list is like all over the place, but I need to just grab one. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. I need that for 30 minutes. And like, write yourself a permission slip if you need to, like permission to take care of myself today. And even if it's 5 minutes, you're in control of those 5 minutes and it's going to feel good. I promise.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that, you know, that it's not cut and dry. It's different for everyone because everyone is different and unique in how they handle stress and how they handle growth and how they handle these things. So I think that's excellent. Yeah. And you mentioned your nurture list. We did have a question in the chat if you would share that, and maybe that's something that we can work on after sending out to attendees to see, and maybe kind of give them a stepwise of, hey, here's how to develop your own nurture list.
Yeah, and like, don't overthink it. Be like, what feels really good, right? Like I bought a TV in June and I didn't plug it in until November. That's how busy I am. And I watched a show on Netflix last night at 10 o'clock, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Because I chose the show, and I laid in bed and I watched it. I was like, this is wild. This feels crazy. Like, it can be whatever, right? Don't over-engineer it. But think of those things that are like, you know, maybe you have a 3-minute song that you love. Mine is Juice by Lizzo, and I danced to it before a big meeting. Like, getting that energy out and moving your body, like, game changer. Big energy. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So we'd love to know if people, if in the chat, if they're interested in getting a certificate for this professional development. I know that professional development, we did a poll, and there's less, or the 0 to 4 hours on professional development was like the majority of people. And so maybe just a question along with that: how do you prioritize it more? How do you prioritize, you know, yourself and your professional development and leadership skills?
Yeah. At first, it's going to have to be a conscious effort. And then when you turn into, like, I call myself a personal development junkie, but it's always impacted my professional life and how I show up. It almost turns into like, you won't ever find me skipping breakfast, right? So it's a little discipline at first to kind of take the first step and get started. And I don't think that there is a hard and fast rule on how to do it best. I don't know, like, for me, if you were to get a specific certificate, like, I show up to these things just with my life experience and years of therapy, right? Like, I don't have a certificate that says I'm qualified to go talk about these things, but I have a lot of experience and I love to do it. I'm guessing there are certain things out there, like the Coactive Training Institute has their full-blown certification. It's, what are you interested in, right? What are the things that you, from a skill standpoint, you really want to harness, and then go see what is out there and really aligns. It looks like Student has something, which is cool. Do you guys? Yeah.
We have certifications, and we have sometimes when we do these events, we have certificates that we send out, just acknowledging that, you know, that professional development piece of events like this.
Yeah, what I always look at too is like, where am I at, and what I don't always look at, like, oh, I want a PhD. Like, I save that for my sister. PhD in organic chemistry, right? But I think about it and I'm like, what are the skills and kind of the deltas where I'm at right now? And can I get that by shadowing somebody at work? Can I get that by having a coffee chat with a specific mentor? Do I get that with specific coursework? Like, what does that kind of look like? And as long as you are curious and navigating through that path, and I think building some connection and community around where you want to get to, you will find all of the resources, you know, that you need to kind of launch you in that direction. It's just, again, are we intentional about choosing it? So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and your experience and bringing this. And again, anyone that wants to connect with Katie, you can do that with the links that she shared, and we'll share out her slides in the when we send out the recordings after the event. So thank you so much, Katie.